keeping most of that up for Saturday because I'm running a Greyhawk Kids game with my son and Bill's son. So, of course, we're not going to stream that, but
Harbor Town is an all-new series from
hello.
Building
We're
Authority,
just talking. Can you guys hear?
Tabletop gaming.
If you can hear us, let me know.
Unique, flexible, and playable.
Audio check.
Harbor Town will take your games to
Comms check.
Mic check. Present.
Yeah, my audio good?
Yeah, yours is good. Yeah, absolutely. Because I didn't do I was rushing and I didn't do a pre-test, which I normally do.
You were talking about Theater of the Mind earlier, and it reminded me of my last game session on Sunday. I drew out a battle map for the scenario I was doing in Ghost of Saltmarsh. And I found, not surprisingly, that it kept the player's eyes glued to the game. When I'm doing Theater of the Mind, I have no control over the game.
Yep.
Really?
That's my experience too.
Wow, that's
it works for me that way too. I'm so visual. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a place to do it. I think it's more of a place to do. I don't want to. It's almost like an addition were, but I've had Fantasy Grounds people on. All right, hold on one sec here. Am I gonna hit the wrong button here? I probably will.
Yeah, the dry erase battle maps for me. I've used them ever since they came out.
But the cool thing was Carlos used it for the first time ever in his life at Gen Con when he DM'd the second part of the adventure that we both did. So that was cool.
I was using game paper.
Yeah, they have some really cool products. I have my old tactiles. They still work, but I'm thinking about upgrading and buying new stuff from gaming paper this year. So yeah.
I saw this company.
Yeah, we have some advertising here, some hidden advertising, but it's actually true. I'm going to buy some stuff from Eric Bauer Gaming Paper, and I'm going to pay for it too. I'm going to insist that I'm going to pay for it at least. Yeah. Yeah, I don't expect any discounts. No.
I saw this company that they had liked one of my Instagram posts, and they have this stuff where it's a 3D image, and you lay that into a flat screen, like kind of like what Jeff has, and then you play on that because the image looks like steps in it. It was really cool, but it's limited by the size of the screen, right? The computer screen or the PC screen. So I'm like, it's something that I couldn't apply in my game, And I was thinking to myself, it's cool to do. Maybe for a limited situation, like a rushing waterway or something, it may be pretty neat to do something like that. To have the river flowing, actually.
Yeah, if you use miniatures or counters on top of the TV, then that becomes a problem. But if you use counters like in 20 or like I used to do back in the day in Illustrator, then it's not a problem because then you can zoom in and out as need be and pan left and right, like up and whatever direction. So that way you have an infinite size battle map, so to speak. So or like gaming tables. So that works really well. But if you use miniatures or counters or something on top of it, then it becomes a bit of a hassle because then you can't move it around or kind of pan it.
It's the miniatures that can get to be the hard thing. Once you get a certain amount, you're always looking for that right miniature. And I tend to drag the miniatures out and start writing adventures, figuring out adventures around what miniatures I have.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I don't like not having monsters that I'm playing. I hate that. I understand that completely, Jason. I'm going to torture my boy Bill with all these mounted metal Reaper miniatures for our joust in May or June. That's a lot of painting. So we'll see.
Yeah, that is. What did you say, like 14?
Well,
dismounted and wounded and even dead, so that when your character's killed, it's lying there dead on the board that they're fighting over. So like each night had, we had the horse, him on the horse, and wounded on the horse wounded. It was just this nice little things, counters that you keep replacing.
Hope everyone is well tonight. Good evening. What's up, Wiley? Oh, people are rolling in, definitely. So, villains. I saw that Gary Connor's guy's got a game, and he's got 100 different mounted figures, and I don't know what it was for. I don't know if it was a chainmail game or something. It was insane. He had it up on a post on Gary Con, so I wanted to check that out.
Yeah, I don't think that Emery Metals is going to.
No, it just was something different.
I was reading on his blog that I don't think he's going to make Gary Con.
What?
Going to make Greyhawk?
Well, there's this guy Joe Picasso.
Oh, okay.
He runs a miniatures game for Battle of Emery Metals.
Oh, yeah, I've seen pictures of that. I've seen the setup. I didn't see when they played, but I've seen earlier Gary Con.
Get your baddies ready online too, everyone. If you want to take some from a bunch from the audience too.
Speaking of Gary Con, I think the event registration is down.
It went down that day.
Yeah, it went down.
We can talk about that. Yeah, I was fortunate. I got in that Saturday, but I was one of the lucky ones. Only about 50 people got to register stuff.
Yeah, I got one event in my game box, and then my game box, or like my shopping basket. That was it. Then
Coming on 1 minute early.
Gary Con?
No, it was one of the servers that was kind of set up in the wrong way. That was the problem.
We're talking about the login for silver badge people
tabletop
Gary Con
events
issue, which was
I
what
was
the disaster
thinking about that
is.
too.
But hopefully that'll get resolved. Good evening. How's everyone? I'm J.K. Lurker. Somebody got Anna Meyer and Greyhawk Mike Bridges with me as usual, and then a resident gentleman that has all the data on everything Greyhawk, Jason Zavoda.
Yes, exactly.
And
our
is,
resident sage.
Yes, the resident sage, which will really help us here. Hey, look at that! Came back. He needs more. Joe Block's on. Hey, Joe.
Awesome. Hi, Joe.
Good to see you, man. Look at that, Joe. I gave you a nice little VIP badge there for you. You're good to go with all that. So, tonight, let's discuss villains. Good general topic, and we could bounce around a little bit on this. 3 hours wasn't enough, but that's good because we're gonna, Joe. I really appreciate you coming back on because and hanging with us. It means a lot. We're trying to really bring Greyhawk back, and I think everyone has really been happy with the direction of a lot of broadcast shows, and we're trying to keep everyone interested in getting the Greyhawk content with this show. That's why we delve a little deeper into this show than my other Gavin show, which is more about my campaign. So Anna, not an individual, but like maybe an event or maybe a big grand one. What comes to mind when you think of villains right off the bat in Greyhawk?
Oh, well, I have one of my favorite villain that is kind of a little bit on the sidelines, but he very infamous in his way, and that's Duke Zephyrin. That was one of the if you read the Ivid the Undying, he was one of the Ivid's generals. I think he was his top commander or one of the highest ones that wreaked havoc in Ulmor and around those areas. And he's one of those that I used as my top villain in my Rel Devon campaign. And
what was his quirk? Because he's an animus.
Yeah, he's an animus, but I played up that he leveled up and he became more and more evil and so on. So he de facto became like a Death Knight, so to speak. He had I made him as an alternate version of Death Knight, so to speak. So he was a high level Hextorian champion, paladin, cleric kind of person with huge weapon and spell powers, so to speak. So that's how I kind of tuned him for my campaign. So yeah.
Well, so because you ran that campaign, That's what immediately comes to your mind.
Yeah, that's one
Okay.
of the first one. That's the I have two villains. We can talk about the other one later, but that was one of my two top villains that I've used in my campaign that really worked out well. That I think was
Okay.
really, really cool. He came back
Did they
4
defeat him?
times. No, they didn't. So yeah, he came
No,
back
come on.
4 times. He came first time as an illusion, and second time he came as just running past, and the third time he came for real, so to speak, for the
Ooh.
first time, just scaring the shit out of them, and then he came at the end to basically kick the living shit out of half the party and everybody else involved. So yeah.
High
Fool me three.
mortality rate in that is campaigns when fourth
No, it
level
wasn't that
characters run
bad. It
into
wasn't
death
that bad.
knights
He
on the
actually,
road.
yeah, oh yeah, that one was bad. Yeah, that was one. That was actually one of a real Death Knight that was going to go and join Duke Zephyrin that came and wiped out half the party, or 2/3, or yeah, 4 out of 6, I think it was. Yeah.
How about you, Mike? What do you think of just immediately what comes with like a major event, or when we're talking about this villains discussion tonight,
Events. So,
or person?
in preparation of this, what was the first thing that popped in my head?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I tried to do is I'm going to avoid IUs, right?
Okay.
But I know Casey wants to talk about the Boneheart. So I did write down a few Boneheart.
That's great.
My
Yeah.
notes. But,
I love the Bone Hearts.
but so I was like trying to avoid the Boneheart, and so my mind then went to the Horn Society instead.
To the Horn Society.
Mhm.
Oh, nice. Nice. That's awesome. And
they had been more utilized.
pre Greyhawk Wars for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even after Greyhawk Wars, they're still kind of got this, like they're coming back feel to them.
What I want to ask you a quick question off of that. What do you think of that adventure card where there's a one hierarch left and it's called To Slay a Hierarch? Did you ever run it, or did you ever look at it?
I'm not sure if I ran that card. I suspect I have, but Andrade Marius from the City of Greyhawk box set, probably that same card,
right,
was one of my major villains I ran back in the day.
Cool.
Because, and it was essential that no one knew he was one of the hierarchs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it got so bad with this villain that I wasn't even really using the Horn Society so much as he was just trying to destroy the city was my plot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was so successful with this villain. I not only got a couple of the player characters banished from the City of Greyhawk.
Nice.
I brought back Andrade a second time. After he was defeated, I brought him back a second time and fooled my players. Quite mad at me.
There's nothing better than the look on the face of players when they're like, didn't we kill you already? You know what I mean? Or like, oh my God, we got to deal with this individual again. I mean, it's a great feeling, knowing that you're really driving them insane with that.
The second time was a little more sweet because I inserted Andrade as he was in disguise. He used an alter ego, and he was one of the servants for the player characters.
Okay.
Their estate or whatever. So he was right there under their nose doing all these evil acts. And when they found out, they were quite mad at me. They weren't mad at Andrade, they were mad at me.
Because
I just messed with their nice house that they had spent all these levels establishing, and then I throw a major villain in the mix.
It's excellent. I mean that was just another from your campaign memory, and that's a good thing that it brings back.
I love the hierarchs in the Horn Society, but I used them in a different role when the characters weren't that high level, so to speak. So they were on the outskirts of Molag. So I used them as big, almost like gods. The characters were like 5th, 6th, 7th level. So I basically used them as the big baddies that are unnamed, and they're so horrible. So just otherwise you will die kind of villains. So they were not named. They didn't even know if it was a true hierarch or not. It was just these powerful beings that all of a sudden just wanted to have bloodlust and kill everything in their way because they had a bad day at work, kind of, yeah, whatever. They just established their so the characters, they were terrified. But there's an interesting side note in my campaign. I've turned one of my player characters. We ran one evil campaign with all the some
Yeah.
people said, let's spin it and do some evil stuff. So they played orcs and stuff that worked for IUs and others. And one of them, he my players, he was an awesome guy. Stephen. He was actually from Canada originally, but he lived in Sweden. But anyway, he played a cleric of near rule, and we played him up to like 5th level or 6th, and then we said that this is not working really well. We skipped it. But I played with him separately, so we played his character up to like 15th level and made some in between sessions and play by post and stuff like that. And so he became one of the ranks of the hierarchs, so to speak. So he played his way into them, and then I used him as a villain in a later campaign, so to speak. So he was not one of the really the canon ones, so to speak, or in publication. So I actually created him. Galahad was his name.
It's cool how this discussion's already bringing back memories. That's it's a great thing about it, you know. And I see that Casey and Joe are talking about Bone Shadow members already.
Oh, yes,
which leads me to one that I forgot to discuss on the Halfling show, was the Halfling Bone Shadow member, or maybe I did, Griswold Hairhand.
You mentioned him, I think.
I did? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm getting old. I said turned 53 in a week and a half.
You're
So I'm
younger
like,
than me,
oh.
so don't complain.
Yeah. Jason, how about you on this one?
Well, you know, I'm thinking of all this is such a rich topic with the villains, because villains are the game. I mean, the players go up against villains. That's what we game mostly, you know. So the villains, a good villain, is something always to be desired. And so there's so much to talk about. But when you're talking about the Horn Society, I have to jump in and start talking, because I know that you know, after Greyhawk Wars and such, which is something I really don't use, they've pushed us, and they've gotten rid of the Horn Society basically, and that's such a loss from my point of view for DMs not to really be able to see, because the Horn Society is just it's such a rich and amount of material there, and I think it's a much easier to use and better storyline to follow, and more adventurous than the entire Uz thing, because Uz is so overpowering. You know, it's just in the hierarchs, what you can use is there's you have all these unnamed, you know, until later, all these unnamed hierarchs to do as you want, and then you have the vying for power within them, and that whole area there by the Bandit Kingdoms and the Shield Lands and the Rift Canyon. It is, and then further north with the Rovers, and you have such a rich area there, and the hierarchs are such a wonderful resource for villainy. Um, that I just I'm always sad to see that they've pushed it away, and I would think that if there's any major retraction to the campaign, it would be to not destroy the Horn Society the way that they did in the Greyhawk Wars, because that has to be my favorite group of villains, would be the hierarchs.
Well, and you know how the level of agreement with you is so huge. It's simple. Everyone wanted, and has Anna's 576 map. So you know that people want to go back to it a lot. So that's good to hear.
That's one of the major themes for my upcoming campaign.
It's beautiful.
It's the comeback of the Horn Society. Yes, so it's my players hope they don't listen to this, because that's one of the major stuff, that major things because I miss them so much too, and I agree everything you said, Jason. That's why, and I'm turning them into a kind of an alternate version of filling the same roles as the Scarlet Brotherhood to some degree. And they're coming back, so they're kind of an alternate form of evil cult that is more interesting and more subversive than I use demonic kind of influence. So they will play a major part in my upcoming adventure set in Shieldland, or what used to be Shieldland area. And
Yes, and I was glad to see that they were trying to have various hierarchs or new hierarchs in various places. That there were some hiding in a forest, I think, and then you had the one in Greyhawk City, but you had them scattered all over the place. I'm glad that they didn't, throw it away entirely, but just I found I don't really want to take the campaign to a level of nation changing, but I don't run a high level campaign.
yeah,
I like, and it's a relatively short period of time, even as far as they've advanced it. Where big nations, if you look at European history, big nations didn't really, change. They went through periods where things stayed the same for quite a while. The borders really didn't go back and forth too much, and
well, Europe kind of remakes itself every 200 years. There is like major trauma, and the whole continent changed.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy to think, how in Europe things went, and in the Greyhawk setting itself. But
yeah,
I just thought that just looking at it as a gaming thing, I just thought what a loss it was to destroy the Horn
yeah.
Society, and I just never had the feeling for Uz that I guess maybe Sargent felt, or at least the people at TSR at the time really felt very strongly at making a super powerful villain nation.
Yeah, but it made perfect sense from a strategic standpoint, because they were the evil competitor to IU, so he needed to kind of run over them in order to conquer other areas further south and other interesting parts of the Flanese. So it makes perfect sense that he wiped them out, so to speak, or at least overtook them. So yeah,
Oh yeah, and I mean Gygax was heading toward a war in his own concept.
yeah.
And if you read the updates, things seem to be heading toward war. And then if you read the novels, it was a earth-shattering campaign at the end.
Yeah. I would have, if I been Carl Sargent, I would have done the other way around. I would have I used the demonic villain that would be the subversive cult everywhere, and the Horn Society be the organized one that took a much larger area. I think that, to me, that would have seemed the logical one. Make them the major villains that conquered the Bandit Kingdoms and a lot of other areas, and expanded and became the big evil power in the Flannies. And IUs became this kind of on the run demonic thing that had cults here and there, like the Temple of Elemental Evil popping up, and he had his supporters and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah,
probably been my take on it.
yeah. My own is that the Horn Society's taking over, subverting various of the Bandit Kingdoms, and are fight against the Shield lands too. So, I was doing the same thing. Did you see it as a kind of law versus chaos fight between us
To
and the
some
Horn
degree, yeah.
Society?
I always see these things that, because they are all having these sponsors, I would like to call them, from below, so to speak. So they are sponsored, like the Horn Society. I saw them as the central neutral evil planes, and some of the Lord, like Anthraxis, and some of the others, Nerul and others, sponsoring the Horn Society. And back in the day when Hextor came in, that was Hell sponsored Ivid and his rules, so to speak. And then Ayus became the major demon or abyssal player on so there's, and the blood war kind of spills over into the Flannies at times when it gets really heated. But the problem, the way I see it, is that if they start fighting each other too much, then good wins, so to speak. It's that saying that when evil fights evil, good benefits from it. And so they can't fight each other too much. There had to be some sort of restraint, or they will all lose. And they don't like that. So the sponsors, as soon as they get too much fighting, the sponsors kind of withdraw and say that no, we need to kind of keep the resources here. They can't offer too many souls back to the primordial plane in form of demons, support, whatever, because then they lose on their home plane. So it's all a balancing act among. They have to reap harvest new souls to come in. When they can do that, then they can wage an offensive again, so to speak.
You guys went grand scale right off the bat, man.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I love this part of,
All
of
right.
the thing. It's like, yeah, I
I'm a.
did a write up a few days ago on
That's
just
awesome.
this thing. Yep.
I'm young. We're going to go back. I'm going to leave. I'm going to say this as much to published sources as I can. All right. And I get one of these first modules ever. And I actually have to figure, they published a figure for this character. And I'm like, this is a great baddie. Great.
Oh, is that Larith the Beautiful?
Larith the Beautiful is my
Yeah,
first
mhm.
memory of a villain, right? And that
Yeah.
Temple of Hamlet, I mean, I'm sorry, the Village of Hamlet, and you go Temple of Hamlet 2 years later, but Village of Hamlet, he's nasty compared to first level characters, right?
Oh
Going
yeah.
in there, and I saw that as, and he was a worshiper of Loth, which was like, that's cool. He's a human. He worships Loth, and he has this
Yeah.
+3 footman's mace, and he's got this great armor, and it's a tough fight with him. And it's just like, I think Jason and I talked about this when we did on Gab and back on memorable NPCs. I think we did, Jason.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I said to him, it's such a shame that you kill him. You know, it's like one of those. It's one of those great villains. Just an
Oh yeah.
awesome villain.
Oh yeah. I didn't kill him in my campaign. What I did was he got his face transfigured, and he comes back and he ends up. The party wins the moat house, and they start rebuilding it, but they want to go off an adventure. So the Viscount sends them this representative who is going to be like the seneschal of the moat house for them while they're gone.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's really Lareth who's had his face changed.
Oh, cool.
And he sets it up so that while they're away, he takes over the moat house. And when they come back to the moat house, there's a big ambush that goes on in the courtyard, and the party has to fight their way out and then re-siege the moat house all over again.
And P, you pick up that also, and it brings a good point up. If you run, that's a cool story too, Jason. That you ran with it. It says, beware those, beware the wrath of Loth, because they're going to send an assassin after you. So if you run like a Hamlet temple campaign in that area, you got to incorporate all that. So there you
Read
go.
this one. Yeah, this one. It's the Temple of Elemental Evil novel by Thomas M. Reed, and yeah, it's basically the adventure told in a novel form. It was like a lot of years since I read it, but it's kind of it's some cool read and some details and stuff.
Elizabeth Moon wrote that, not Elizabeth Moon has her character go through the Temple of Elemental Evil.
Nice.
In the Paxenarian books.
Okay. I've never read them. I'm really bad on reading Greyhawk novels.
Her character comes to Hamlet, and by another name, of course, and ends up going into the Temple of Elemental Evil.
I just started reading this one for my next campaign, White Plume Mountain. So I'm reading this one for research now.
I do have that.
Awesome. So how's the Temple book, everyone? Was it okay?
Yeah, I think it was okay. Yeah, it was like 10 years since I read it. It was okay. Yeah, it's much more fun than to read the adventure if you just want to kind of immerse yourself in the and you get some descriptions here and there that are kind of cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I read the Giants book first and hated it, and I kind of shied away from the rest. I have them, but I haven't read the others yet.
Okay.
I haven't read the Giants yet. I think I have all of them in one form or the other. And
I know why, Jason. I do the same thing, Anna and Mike, because you always think that your stories are better than what the writers did. I understand that completely, man.
But it's my style is different than published modules. So that's why I love the published modules to kind of get details from them, but I don't run them as written. So yeah.
David, hope you're doing okay after the last week you've had. So
yeah.
They were odd, according to Mike, what he says. I know, us old school purist Mike may have an issue with that. But hey, it's cool. It's in our perspective.
Yeah, I tried to be nice. Odd is probably a good description. I tried to be nice. Yeah, I know that I couldn't write anything better, so that's why I can't say that they're bad. Yeah.
All right, so this is how we'll handle this.
Yeah.
We're gonna bounce around. We'll go around in a circle, and bring up some good ones. Good to hear. Hang in there, man. Hopefully we'll see you on a little bit tomorrow night. And then I want like the audience to throw out a couple, and we'll throw them in as well of ones you
Mhm.
want us to discuss, and we can we can definitely do that. So and like I said, my part, I'll try and keep mine to canon as much as I can. I may throw one or two of my own baddies in there, but most off I'll keep the published. So Anna, why don't we start off with you? What you got?
If
Give
I
us a
got
villain.
my favorite villain is Lord Vuron, is from the Gord books.
Okay,
Definitely.
cool.
Yeah, he's one. I've used him as an evil
Name.
patron. For me, so to speak, he's the kind of the lawful demon in a way. That's kind of how he's described in the Gord books. He's a demon with more reasoning and patience and composure than other demons, and he's super smart. So I've used him in many capacities as a kind of an evil patron that sometimes steer the party to hell, literally, and sometimes give them the key they need in order to succeed. And he's a secret power broker for Grast and the power of Abyss, and he's really mighty in himself, but he likes to be the kind of character that whispers in the ears of the high and mighty rather than to play high and mighty by himself. So I think he's a schemer more than an actor, so to speak. And
Can I ask a really ignorant question on my part? Is Lord Vuron a demon or a devil, or does not?
He's a demon.
Oh,
He's a demon.
Okay, they
Yeah,
don't.
but from the
Okay.
description in the Gord books, I get the sense that he's clearly a demon, and he's
Okay.
depicted as a albino demon,
Wow.
so to speak. So he's a white demon with red eyes. So
Oh.
I've depicted him as a kind of a skeletal, almost mummy, dried out figure with pale skin, red eyes, and almost skeletal figure in a hooded robe. And he's a powerful wizard and can do spells and divination and stuff like that at almost a deity level. That's how I used him in my campaign and depicted him. He's ruthlessly evil when to be, but he's more curious than he's evil. But he can be as evil as need be, no doubt about it. But I play him as more curious than evil.
Demons are going to demon.
Yeah, he's the patient, almost lawful, curious demon. Not he doesn't go in rage fits or anything like that.
Wow, Jason, that's a lot of references on him.
Oh yes, yeah, he's been in
Never used that one.
Yeah, almost he's in every Gord book, I think, except the first two. I think.
Oh no, he's in. I have him down as Sea of Death, Come Endless Darkness, and Dance of Demons.
Yeah.
So he's not in City of Hawks or Knight Errant or the first two.
Okay. Yep.
But it sounds like he's got a major role in the books, which is cool.
Oh yeah, he definitely has. Yep.
Excellent. Good one. Good one. Okay, Mike.
Throw something out.
Throw something out, man.
Throwing something out. Well, I saw earlier the guys in chat were talking about Kerman Mindbender.
Yeah.
From the Boneheart. I particularly liked that villain because he was Backloonish, and which really intrigues me.
Okay.
That he would be over there working with the group that he is working with. Like, what's his angle? He don't seem to belong. Plus, I always liked his mind bending, mind control thing going on. It was always fun using him to, mess with my players' heads. And much like Casey was saying, I think I had Kerman actually turn on eyes as well. Because he just seemed to be too good for the Boneheart, in my opinion. That's because I'm Backloonish biased.
Yeah. I don't know. I see a lot of I know that, and this is going off that one of my favorite, and you'll see some of these up, digital graphic artists. He's from France, Dungeon Meister. I should have put all the Boneheart up. I only have Athea and Halga up. Had in their final battle with Ayu's, Kerman switched, but when that was the one of the Boneheart that betrayed Ayu's, but he wanted to get what they were, I think the Codex of Infinite Planes or whatever they were trying to get in there. He went trying to get it for himself. So he wasn't he didn't switch sides. He went on his own. So that makes kind of sense that you would think that was the same one. So pretty interesting. That's a good one. But you just don't, you can't put the connection between Backloonish and
Yeah, I
Chat, if you
know
all
that
together.
like
Yeah.
he briefly had an alliance with Ket.
Right.
I use, but I just always felt that he was, why wasn't he over in his homeland doing evil things? What's his angle for being
Okay.
over there? I don't know. Someone who can mind control, especially, was he some kind of power behind the throne or whatever? Who knows?
Good points, man. Great
Yeah.
points. Definitely. Jason.
Well, I've always looked at things, the villains, in like three categories. Legendary villains like Caraptus, Asurek, Vecna. And they're ones who I don't use, but I use their legends are there. They're, like they're not a force on the in the campaign, but their background, their remnants of them are found. You go in their dungeons, you find their items. And then I have more of the deific villains.
Hmm.
I've been using Encabulus quite a bit. Meryl. I like the Grazd, who's, again, like Voron. Voron's one of my favorites, and
Mm-hmm.
or is my favorite of the deific ones. And the thing with the demons is they kind of bridge that gap between being a monster and a deity. And people can, in the campaign, they can get NPCs can get powers from them. And then you have like Uz, who is kind of between the different groups there because he's a bit legendary, but he's also an active participant, and he's kind of on the deific side in himself because he's like the balance to Saint Cuthbert. So he really is kind of a deific one. I see people bringing up Igrivel, and there's, she's up there, like by us, and Zugmodi, Zuckmoy. There are all these powerful ones, but what most of them are is they're ones that I don't really get a lot of direct campaign use out of. They're the powers behind things. They're the legends. They're not what my more low level kind of campaigning runs into. And for that, I really end up using more of the day to day villains or, more commonplace evils.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, one of the ones that I've been fooling around with is not from all these sources. It's this wizard Gramorley from the Wormy strips, and
Oh yeah, very cool.
and what I've been doing with him is I did a little write up on him. He was based in the city of Greyhawk, and he would hire out adventurers to go and to get various things that he wanted, various items of power. And he was always the one who would shortchange you or betray you. And pretty soon, like he was like the person you go to as last resort when you were desperate for some coin, because he was such a nefarious character. And in the end, my characters they ended up raiding his estate in his mansion in the old city, and it turns out when they've raided it, they find all these items, and Grimorley has turned them into the city as the one who stole all those items originally, and they all get arrested by the Greyhawk
Double
City Guard.
cross.
Yep.
Yes, the big double cross by Grimorley.
That's
And if
awesome.
you're familiar with the character from
Yeah.
Wormy, that's exactly who he would be.
So we all know now from Sunday nights delving into halflings and tonight that Jason has an affinity for Phineas Figures, Wormy, and probably Phil Foglio's What's New, right? Those three.
Well, not so much. There's not really much you can bite into with What's New, but Phineas and Wormy were very rich sources of material.
Hey,
For sure.
I loved them. I love the both of them. It was a shame when Wormy just ended because I always found it so funny that he was wanted for wargaming. That was the funny thing. That was what they
Wormy,
wanted.
yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to say Wormy might be uh, one of the main reasons why I kept playing D&D as long as I did
Just to
because I
see
had
it
that
each month.
subscription. yeah, that monthly subscription to Dragon kept me going.
Yeah, that's cool. I just found it so entertaining. Definitely, good ones, Jason. So I'm gonna go to my
Gary,
yeah, I know. Gary's on too.
Gary is a villain.
Yeah, well, Gary should be on here, right? Right, Anna? He
Oh
should
yeah,
be on here
definitely.
talking.
He should be. Hi Gary. Yeah.
Good to see you,
Gary, you
man.
gotta come on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'll go back to a mainstay of mine, and it's an organization but two individuals in it because only two are actually in published sources that I know of. And I love them, and Anna actually has expanded their territory in the Horn Society for me
Oh,
on the
okay.
map, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the Free Reavers.
Oh,
They're awesome
okay.
villains.
Yeah.
And what I love about the Free Reavers
Sure.
is two things. They're vilely evil, chaotic evil as it comes, and they don't take shit from anyone, including the Iusians, even in From the Ashes. They're like, they actually threaten the priests of Ius, and they have their own area that they patrol, and Ius just leaves them alone. And if you've watched my Trials of the Legion, the very first thing they raided over and killed a whole bunch of the Legion, because that they are on the border with the Free Reavers territory in the Shieldlands at Warmark, their keep, and they just slaughtered. For the sake of it, they just slaughtered all the servants at the vineyard, just to make a point. And I love vilely evil characters like that who are beholden to no one. And the two, Eldrin Bloodsplitter is the priest of Erethnal that's mentioned in the Eyes the Evil, but my favorite's of course Sharon Velvalinar. In the published setting, she's 14th level fighter, and she does what's called a Sharon smile, and that's a throat cut from ear to ear. And it says right in the Eyes the Evil reference, she can look very pretty when she smiles. She smiles most when she's cutting a Sharon smile on someone. I think it's pretty funny, just the way it's written in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've
Yep.
incorporated them in depth into my Shieldlands campaign. They're always
Yeah.
raiding in. So and I've created a lot of other named characters in that group. So you may see them coming up. We may not. You never know. But that's one for me. So,
Nice.
yeah. Well, Mystery Cycle brings up another one. Let's talk about the one that Mystery Cycle brought up. There's a bunch of good ones, but let's bring up this one. The good old hopping prophet himself, Washtree. That's a good one for the audience, right?
Wow.
Washtree is
Oh,
a strangely written. Whoever wrote Washtree, kudos, right? Gary, do you know? Does anyone out there know? Did Joe Block? Does anyone know who wrote Washtree? It is.
Mike, do you know? Yeah.
No.
I love the write up because it doesn't
Bizarre.
fit the prototype of what is going on. He's a guy, really Gygax's creation.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Think about this. He thinks that humankind is best served turning into toad-like beings.
Yeah.
It's just disturbing on all fronts, and demi-humans are fit for slaughter, but humanoids can serve, which is kind of backwards, which is funny.
But yeah, it bridges that between pure evil and funny silly. It's kind of bridge that gap. That is kind of really cool. You can play it like stupid silly, or you can as evil as needed, so to speak. So it's kind of it's both a comic relief and something you can scare the hell out of the players with.
Well, if you put it into real life, a lot of cults don't make sense what they do. Like the Hellbop. I'm sorry if I offend anyone. Let's kill ourselves and get on the Hellbop comet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of cults.
Yeah, but that's one of the definitions of a cult. It has gone beyond reason, so to speak. Exactly.
So that's a great one there, Mystery. And if you play Horror in the Holes at GaryCon, you'll get a first-hand look at some of that craziness. Hint, hint. The adventure that Carlos and I jointly wrote both parts on that I'll be running at GaryCon. So it's a good. I'm the god of human race superiority, by the way. Frog genes are exactly, man. It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's all about logic, and I love it just because it just throws a wrench into everything. And it's like the Free Reavers. You need things that just don't follow. Evil's here, good's here. You need something else in between somewhere to make gray areas, like Anna knows I do with the Fultians, the lawful neutral Fultus people. You need
Oh,
that. You got to throw that in there,
Yep.
and then you don't know if they're villains or not. So that's a great one, a mystery. As we go round table here,
very good.
thank you for that. Go ahead, Anna. What do you got?
I want to tie back to what Jason said, that they had different levels of
Mhm.
villains, and I want to kind of tie into that concept because that's how I see villains too. Instead of naming one, I'm can make 1 minute to kind of
Sure.
elaborate a little bit of
Sure.
how I see it. And I also have the levels. First, you have like when the low level characters, when they just go around the corner, you have those local villains, meaning the gang leader or the evil, greedy city guard that is always pestering the characters and skinning them, and the highway robbers that come time and time and loot coins from them and stuff like that. Those pesky villains that kind of are in the local neighborhood that goes around and you can taunt the characters with over and over and over again. They don't necessarily need to be pure evil. They can just be greedy or whatever, power hungry generally, so to speak. And then you have then I have another level is the mid-level villains. Those are the ones that are most common, that I use most in my campaigns. Those are the doers and shakers for the big ones, so to speak. So I rarely use the big ones, so to speak. They're like I use and even Vuron and stuff. They can be the theme of a whole campaign, one of the big villains. And I usually have 2 or 3 big mighty villains in the background, but the characters never interact with them. And all there is these mid-level, and I usually invent them, most of them. They are the agents of the actors for these villains, and they can be the cult leaders, the priests, the guild leaders, the merchant guild leaders, the duke, the baron, or whatever it is that serve some higher power, either publicly or hidden. They do it secretly. And then you have the top villains that you can kind of throw in once a campaign or something like that. And I like to throw them more or less. They come in when the characters and the players least expect it, so to speak. Sometimes I actually opened with the major villain right off the bat. It was not the end fight. I had the boss fight from the
They bring
beginning,
in
so
the
to speak. Yeah, to
lesser
turn the
villains.
whole campaign upside down. So the characters started out with fully kitted and all the treasure, and then we went downhill from there, so to speak.
There's Washtree as we speak.
Yeah. That's villains. There's like all these from the, and I think the most important bit is to have a rich flora of menagerie of villains at all levels that you can kind of throw in. And a good villain needs to be persistent. He needs to come, he or she
Hmm.
it needs to come many times. That I think is one of the key differences between just a monster or a random encounter. A villain should never be just a random encounter. It should be someone that is the characters are introduced to either before or after. They can actually meet him or it or her before and then get all the story afterwards. So the encounter becomes much scarier after they've done it and stuff. So there's many different ways you can deal with a villain. But I think the important thing is that a villain is plays a big part culturally or mechanically, war power wise, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Cool. Great points all around.
Yeah.
That you can actually have a villain grow with the group too.
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the Greyhawk, once again, my favorite publication of all time, the Free City Greyhawk box set, has
Mhm.
3 stage characters in it, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Which
yes, they have them in different
they
levels.
have
Yeah.
a Rennie, they have a Hexter. Is it Hexter priest or something? And they have different stages as they grow up with the characters, which is really a cool concept.
Yeah.
So excellent. Okay, Mike, what do you got?
Well, I was going to bring up something Mystery Cycle was talking about, and that was Scarlet Brotherhood infiltrating countries.
Okay.
While I'm in general against it in some parts of the world, I used to use Scarlet Brotherhood agents a lot. Back when I was running second edition, and not so much like the spies, but the assassins. I used to hound my players with assassins from the Scarlet Brotherhood. What they wanted, I don't remember, but it was always convenient to say, "Oh yeah, Scarlet Brotherhood assassins are coming after you in the middle of the city of Greyhawk, and they're like, "Well, where's the Scarlet Brother?" Oh, they're halfway across the world on this plateau in the middle of the jungle. You'll never get to them. It was like this distant. So maybe it's so much it's the Scarlet Brotherhood or the villains as an organization, but I liked that their fingers were always kind of stretching out, doing God knows what, going after who knows. But some of the official stuff the Scarlet Brotherhood did, I wasn't, keen on, like kidnapping princes and
Shieldlands.
yeah.
I mean, not Shieldlands, Sea Princess.
Yeah, and the Sea Prince takeover, while I'm vehemently against it, it's mainly because I think that a lot of their success was kind of hand waved, and maybe I felt there should have been more build up to it. It's just like 1 minute you have this stuff going on. We knew what was going on in the rest of the planets with the armies builds up and all this stuff, but then all of a sudden, the Scarlet Brotherhood has the Lordship of the Isles, and they have ID and on-wall, and Sea Prince is just like, wait, what? Show me some proof. Where did this come from? But yeah, assassins.
See,
yeah, Gary's right.
we'll talk about that in a second, but
Yeah.
I understand your frustration and it comes from the Ashes box set, and I always have harped on they killed off a lot of characters that I liked, I kept in, right? There's a lot of things like that, these overnight changes. Like the wars were discussed very well, right? So you could understand everything that happened, but a lot of that stuff, boom, I get it completely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I won't harp on that much more.
We can have a whole show about griping about and kind of go over the what we don't like about.
See, that's why we need Gary on for this discussion. So Jason, do yours, and we're going to get to Gary's discussion a bit here on Mordenkainen. But I want to hear what you got to say next, and then we'll do.
Okay, well, there's two things I definitely want to talk about: the Scarlet Brotherhood.
Okay.
And I felt that they were a waste in the overt way that they used them. I like the Scarlet Brotherhood concept, and I use them as a secret organization that never reveals itself. And I didn't like that whole concept of the way that they had the Scarlet Brotherhood right up in the setup. It wasn't how I really thought of them. But I have the Scarlet Brotherhood that has like an organization within an organization, because I always saw them as, on the one hand, this very this order that was trying to involve itself throughout the Flyness, but was much more something that was trying to find its way back to its grand past of the Sul Imperium. But within it, I have a secret organization that actually is linked back to the Sul Imperium. So I've always done the Scarlet Brotherhood as you never really know who you're dealing with, and even the people who are members of the Scarlet Brotherhood, they don't know if they're kind of doing that on Star Trek right now with that Picard, where they have the Romulan Tal Shiar and then a secret organization within the secret organization. So that's something that I've always played with the Scarlet Brotherhood, and they're never going to be the people who come out. They're not going to have big banners or things that saying that they are the Scarlet Brotherhood. They're not big grandiose armies. They are the knife in the back. They are the secret organization, the Whisper. They are the people who work in dark alleys. And so I love having the Scarlet Brotherhood, but definitely not the way they ended up being.
Here's my hypothetical end to the Greyhawk Wars. Leave the Scarlet Brotherhood out of it initially. Have all the other wars going, boom, 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 boom. You kind of get to this plateau. And then the assassinations happen. That ends the war, because then all of a sudden they're like, wait, who are these guys? And then go from there.
They could have done that in the Scarlet Brotherhood reference book, right? But they kept the timeline static at that point. correct?
Yeah, I think so.
But that's a good point. Because then they would have been assassinating both sides.
Yeah, they could have. Why wouldn't they go after the Great Kingdom? They're, like,
Or
right
why
next
wouldn't
door.
they go after like all of the what do you call them? People in Greyhawk, all the diplomats in Greyhawk, and take them all
Instead
out.
of having Rarity be the traitor, it could be the Scarlet Brotherhood blowing up the
Interesting.
Conference instead or something.
And that's another good one that we should discuss now too.
Alternate stories.
So Gary has brought up Mordenkainen. Mona and I speculated the break with Rari occurred when he found out what Mordenkainen was up to. Well, why wouldn't he? All right, so here's the question on that, Gary. Then why wouldn't he attack Mordenkainen and not Luke? Right?
He wasn't there.
Yeah, well, so he took it out on someone else.
Mordenkainen's always pulling the strings, but
Tensor wasn't part of the Mordenkainen scheming. So
No.
that's a good question. Yeah, easier said than done is another thing. So Mordenkainen is as a neutral, militant neutral, as Gary brings up, can be seen almost in some light as a villain because he did trick Robler into freeing Ayus because Fiorendi was getting too powerful, right? That's kind of really a shady thing to do. And Robler was the dupe. Now, I don't know if you guys think this is canon or not, but in return, I'm sorry, in return to the ruins of Expedition to the Ruins of Greyhawk, which I like.
Yeah, I liked it too.
Mordenkainen's the one who's sending you out to do that, to stop the Ayu's army from coming and to get all the parts you need to go through the Tower of Wizardry and stop Vane and his Igwolf clone and all. And it's Mordenkainen sending you on it. So now he's got a change of heart, I guess, because it's gone the other way. So that's the life of neutrals, I guess. True neutrals. The two neutral characters very tough to play. Druidic is one thing, nature based, and you're really protecting natural elements and stuff. But a true neutral wizard like that's good.
Yeah. For me, it's and I grew up in a neutral country, so I have a kind of I have an allergic aversion to this balancing kind of meaning. Okay, now we hit them and they get powerful, so now we hit them instead, and that's neutrality. That's not neutrality for me at all. Neutrality is the hermit that sits somewhere and ignore it. Selene is a perfect example of neutrality. I don't want to have anything to do with anybody. I keep everybody at bay, and we mind our own business, and we don't care about anybody else. That's neutrality to me. And so Mordenkainen in my view is not neutral at all. Neutral is when you don't mess with other people's business. If you say that, oh, they are powerful, so you bang on them a bit, and oh, now they are powerful, then you that to me is like a chaotic neutral leader, so to speak, not a true neutral. So in my opinion, he will be a chaotic neutral narcissist who's scared of other ones getting too much power, but you can definitely play him that way. But this kind of balancing, like, oh, everybody should just have a little bit of power, then that to me is then you're schizophrenic or something.
Well, also you're a puppet master.
Yeah, kind of. So I've never tied into that.
Yeah, what Anna's saying, I started writing a very, very long blog expose on the downward spiral of Mordenkainen, and I didn't finish it because I couldn't wrap my head around all the sources. This thing was getting like really long.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And if you look at all the source material, he goes from like basic adventure and then he kind of goes mad. And I think his alignment changes through the history of the published campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great.
You should write it up. You should still
definitely.
You should still just and say.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hey,
adding to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. With 5th edition, they keep adding to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
but,
they do.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry about my fit. But it's just me it's too close to my own upbringing and my own working career, so that's why I get pissed off at all. I don't want any neutrals being that way. It's like no. The neutrals are the ones when everybody bullies someone, they stand on the side and say, "Oh, it's not my business." That to me is neutral. So which is kind of
so
almost deputy evil is to be neutral, so to speak.
Mount Rushmore was never finished, and it's great. So you could, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could put down your thoughts up to a certain point in history, pre Living Greyhawk or something, and put it down. I think it would be a great discussion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You should definitely write
Jason,
that.
you agree, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was just wondering if you saw any link between Mordenkainen's madness and Zaggy's.
That's a very interesting theory.
Maybe
Very
so.
interesting. Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with the references to him getting into the blood war. I think he went places he shouldn't have, and it kind of
And also too much wisdom and too much intelligence might screw on you a bit or something.
Well,
So,
way too big picture. He can't look at the little things going on.
You see
He's
a
always-
Saruman parable, a Tolkien Saruman parable.
yeah.
Probably, yeah.
It's like wizard OCD. You know too much, and you have too many fingers in the troughs and the pies and the jars and whatever. So you kind of go mad.
I think it's as simple as I know better than all of you. That's what I think it is. And he just decides that, well, I'm going to make sure that life goes on in Greyhawk. I got to knock this one down a peg, knock that one down a peg, and that's my
how I
opinion on
see it start, so to speak.
Yeah.
And eventually he might see that he might have started so many little fires everywhere, so he kind of gets overwhelmed, and his wisdom and powers might not be enough to stop all the things.
That leads into a villain group I created.
Yeah.
Very, very deep.
Yeah.
This is, I didn't think we'd get this deep. That's great.
No,
Gary, thank you for bringing up Morton Kanan. And then, Rary's obviously for permanently destroying Autoluke and almost destroying Tensor. You could say he's a villain too. And still in my campaign, he's still out there. I just like,
In the City Greyhawk box set, Rary is higher level than Morning Kanan.
He's like 25th or something.
So I think there was maybe some competition over who knows better, who's better, a powerful wizard, and it could have just easily been Morning Kanan, the one running off to the Bright Desert to start a kingdom.
It might be some sort of vanity within the wizard community, kind of competition about being the coolest wizard around. So
well, no one's Elminster.
Well, absolute power corrupts, and we just we just have Morty getting too powerful, and that was always the thing with the Lord of the Rings, where like Galadriel, she's doesn't want to take the ring because she'd end up just like the Dark Lord eventually.
Yeah,
just too much power.
Yeah.
It's a good point to when you get to certain levels in Greyhawk, because there's so few. So okay.
Daddy, was your connection like that?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was playing online on the Switch. I won my first ever online game.
That's awesome, man.
I took it real close.
That's awesome.
Hi, Shane.
Everyone said hello. He had to tell me that.
You can't see me,
so thanks, man. He's playing. He's in the Mario Kart now and playing racing people online. So he finally won one. So he had to tell me. That's okay.
That's great.
He's going to be playing Sunday in Greyhawk City and for the Greyhawk Kids Adventure. His character Tiberius, a 6th level fighter. So that'll be a fun one on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So, interesting discussion on the Wizards. But I really appreciate that in-depth look at them. If I got back to and I have to think about this, but there's a lot of like characters that I know. Like if Carlos was here, I got to bring it up because Carlos isn't here. So I'll do it because I love her just as much as Carlos does. And let me just scroll through a couple. I love her too, so I'll get to her later. There. Okay, that's the black. And that's Marquesa. I love Marquesa from the Slavers. Just is a fantastic villain.
The ultimate recurring character.
Yeah, and the great thing is that she's so deep. I mean, and she's an elf too. She's not like a dark elf, but she's an elf, and she's just vilely evil.
It's like, what?
Yeah, and the amount of things she does to people as far as that's Marquesa. If you haven't read the Slavers reference, there's Marquesa the Black, Marquesa the Red, Marquesa the Gold, and there's even a Marquesa the Green that's kind of like there's a gold that kind of went off, and I use Marquesa the Green all the time in my campaign. She kind of shows up when we're doing Harby adventures and helps the party because she kind of remembered her former self. Oh yeah, it's really neat. But Marquesa, the main Marquesa is super high level, and Kaelin Lake goes with all the other Slavers. I know Carlos deals with her in a bunch of adventures, and actually played in it at GaryCon last year.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's awesome. and so I have a little bit of a different. I have a Marquesa. I'm just kind of there's a Marquesa with her manservant Devon. Um, just, I mean, I can't think of anyone who's more villainous and vile than she is as far as what she does. So that's mine. And so quickie one mystery, quick one. I want to tell you the story because you brought it up. Wayne Reynolds. I met him at Gen Con. And all these pictures I have up from the Slavers reference are all War, Wayne Reynolds, right? And I wanted to buy some of them. It says War 99. And he actually had forgotten that he had done, that was one of his first things he did.
Wow.
And I said to him, Wayne, I love all of these in the Slavers reference. Is there some of the original prints I want to buy? And he goes, Jay, I'm really sorry to tell you, they all were destroyed.
Ooh.
They're gone. So it was like, oh, that was just heartbreaking. So I just wanted to, yeah.
So you a big Wayne Reynolds fan?
I love. Well, I saw a lot of Pathfinder miniatures, and then I saw some of his artwork, and it was the minis, the actual Pathfinder minis that he put out in the last 3 years. A lot of them are Wayne Reynolds
Wow.
artwork. I was like, wow. So, but just all of the Slavers references is like one of my top 3 favorites, and because of his artwork and in particular. I just wanted to bring that up because you, Mystery, you mentioned it, and it was a sad day there at Gen Con. But I got a picture with him, so I'll see if I can pull that out as we're going. Yeah, it is great work. Okay, Anna, as we keep on flowing around here.
Okay. I guess it's time for me to introduce one that I've actually created myself. Just as an example that you can actually create villains yourself and try to put them into the Greyhawk environment, so to speak, and make them fit in the campaign. And for me, I thought that Ius was kind of a bit boring just by himself, and he was so powerful, and I wanted to complicate the family picture for Ius a bit. So I wanted to have something that can kind of toward him a bit and be on his level and screw things up. I wanted to put a wrench in some of the things there and stir things up and complicated things for the players story wise. And so I realized that, and I also had just read the Gord books, and in the Gord books, El Clavdra, there is a clone of her that is named Leda.
Huh.
That is
Didn't know
kind
that.
of good, that have some goodness in. And I was like, that was kind of interesting. And so so I kind of thought, who can I introduce here that I think would make sense from a kind of story perspective? And I realized that Grast, he's kind of, I see them as this kind of sexual, he screws around a lot, so to speak. So he has kids everywhere. So as a demon, that seems to be his thing, so to speak. And not only with his succubuses, whatever, he kind of does it make a chance. And El Clavdra and Grast seem to have had some business going around. So of course they kind of screwed around, and there was something came out from that relationship, and none of them are particularly interested in taking care of that little kid. So Vuron took pity on this little drow Cambian little baby that came out some couple hundred years ago or something like that. And I named her Zestra, and she is a drow I use or get us demon. This kind of 6-fingered tall black demon is her dad, and her mother is the most beautiful drow, so to speak, and cool drow. So she is basically a more kind of beefy drow, 6-fingered drow. That's what she looks like.
Nice.
And she was brought up by Vuron, because Vuron was kind of bored, so he taught her how the world works. So she got Vuron's curiosity, but she also wanted to have lustful, mischievous kind of creature. So she's this kind of roguish assassin-like thing that has a hell of a lot, and she's been around, and Vuron made sure that she got the best warlike training ever, so to speak. So she's one hell of a combatant, and she knows some magic and so on, and she can be as ruthless, and she's basically wanted fun things to do. So she's a assassin for hire and stuff. So, and also her Vuron sends her out when he wants to know things and to spy and kind of sneak in and find information and thwart things. And also Graz knows that, so he kind of whispers and tell Vuron that send out that little my offspring out there, do whatever thing. So that's been her role. So she comes occasionally and screw things up and kind of towards and she's really high level and powerful. But she's one of these kind of, I want to spice it up and mystify my campaigns at times. That's when I introduce her.
Very
So
cool.
she's kind of a semi-villain, semi-general NPC patron kind of character. Yeah.
And you know what's even cooler, Mike? Anna's given me permission. I've used her in my campaign.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay.
crossover.
Yep.
So I have her as a bounty hunt. Well, she's the classes are hidden
Yep.
still, but
Yeah, she
she's
wants
been
money.
chasing this wizard around Zoe Van Doren and for ages. Her and this other bounty hunter of Lisden are both trying to capture her for unknown hirelings, and they're always like that one step behind. But the party, the low-level party, and this is in our Winchester's Bulwark adventure on the Pomarsh, that location. The last adventure we did, okay, see, like I told you, the cats would eventually open the doors. I knew it was going to happen. I've used her a lot, and when they returned to Orog's Mound adventure, they both made an appearance in that, and that was the first adventure we did in 2020 to start off our 40th anniversary.
Yep.
So it's cool stuff, definitely. And wow, you opened that door a lot, and that's the second cat there. So,
So I think you can, everyone who wants to make a villain, especially when you make a high level one, try to make them fit in the story and have a place and origin and so on. And she worked out really. I've used her in 2 or 3 campaigns. She comes from nowhere. If there's something that Grast or Vuron can be interested in, or she sometimes needs money, so she takes a job for hire that pays really well, and then she does it. Yeah. And my characters actually hired her once when they wanted to have something done. So yeah.
Good ones coming up here too. I mean, the chat is really going well on a lot of stuff, which is great. I forgot about the silent ones. Wow. And Keelan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot.
So much as they are foils, right?
Yeah. What's that? Who's foils?
Foils. They're the silent ones.
Yeah. We need that's one I want to get on at some point, and our next Legends of the Lord we'll talk about in 2 weeks. We'll have some triads on. I want a Keelan triad on now, but are the Greyhawk Reborn people and the Keelan triads is one and the same? Because they do a lot of work or is it no? Is it just they took that area?
Probably. Well, they might. I don't know.
Casey, that's a good question for you too. So. But we need a Keelan triad on at some point to discuss that area too. Definitely. I'm not sure I know any of the Keelan triad. Okay. All right. Well, we will find them and we will seek them out. So Zestra is a great NPC in my. I love throwing Zestra in because she's very cordial and nice to all the player characters because they're like inconsequential to her, which is what's so funny, So.
Yep.
New York, interesting. Well, cool. Wally, I'm glad you're liking this because we're going to keep on rolling with this. So, Mike, give us another one.
Oh, okay. Villains. Let's see. So, someone mentioned, I think Gary mentioned the Seekers a little while ago, and you were talking about Wayne Reynolds. How about my boy Eli Tomarist?
Okay.
Ooh.
Nice.
I seem to have a thing for wizard villains. There's a lot of them. But what I like about Marcastle, Mordenkainen's fantastic, adventure, Tomarest is this really strange villain with the demon hands. And I'm thinking, well, that's unusual. How do you get those hands? That adventure brought up so many more questions than it answered that even after I ran the adventures, I still found myself building on, upon it. And then so Tomarist became this recurring villain. And then, the Seekers are not an evil organization, but he's perverted part of them, I guess. So now they're like a foil for the players. and it's just a whole big mess. But yeah, Tomoras is one of my favorites. I've talked about him on my blog many times. And what's not to like about Wayne Reynolds art?
There's exactly. Cool one. Jason, go for it. I'm going to quickly get to that. Shut that door again. So go ahead.
Sure. Well, Anna bringing up her own. I hadn't thought about doing this tonight, but I've gotten more interested in the Backlunish Society because I've never really done very much with it. So one of the things I've done is I've been doing a lot with Verbabank, and Verbabank is on the way. So I've been dealing with Ket. Ket has a link to Verbabank because of the trade downriver. So in the city of Verbank, there is a Ketish embassy, and they have assigned one of their strongest agents. And she had been in Greyhawk, and now she's in Verbank because things are kind of popping there for my campaign. And she appears to be she's one of the dancing girls that's assigned to this tavern that a lot of Bakluni and Ketish caravan people and river people come and they stay in Verbank there. And she is actually a 150-year-old vampire or vampiress. And she's there with one of her granddaughters who looks older than her, but she's also turned her into a vampire. And she is the most effective agent. She is Sepha, and her daughter is Toraline. And the two of them, they are linked to the Ketish embassy, and they're head of all of the Ketish agents in Greyhawk, city of Greyhawk, and Verbank. And for me, that's becoming a big part of my campaign is this expansion of Ketish interest into the Flanness. Ket is the easternmost Backlunish state. It's something of a mix between um, um, uh, of the Flanness east and the Backlunish west, and its counterpart, of course, is Bissell. So the two of them there's this like a little Cold War going on of assassinations and agents, and it's kind of my Greyhawk secret agent campaign. And Sepha is the head of, she is the mastermind behind all these things that are going on with the Backlunish Ketish interests in the Flanness down by Greyhawk.
How long have you had that character?
Well, she first started as a villainess that was introduced back I introduced in the 90s. And we were playing in doing a bit of a Backlunish campaign using trying to think of which module it is, B4, B6, B4. I think the Lost City.
It's not Rahisa. It's Lost City,
city
right?
in the
Yeah.
it's a known world D&D, but it's the players discover this lost city in the desert, and that's where she's introduced into the campaign.
Nice.
And then I've just been I've recirculated her into my modern working, and I'm running a 5e campaign now. So she's a background character at the moment, but she's a very powerful force in the day-to-day kind of adventuring they're going to run into, because right now we're doing Ghosts of Saltmarsh, but they're coming to Verbank at some point.
Nice. You need those characters to add that flavor, like that. I always look at it. Oh God, this is gonna sound so corny. It's the Boo Radley of To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, that has not. That whole part of it is like a sidebar, right? But it has something to do with the main story. You know what I mean? But you need that. You got to have it not just one straight story straight through. You got to have those little side things going on, and that sounds like exactly what you're doing with with that character, Jason. That's perfect. It just adds that flavor. Definitely. Let's see what we got here. All right, I'm gonna bring up one. How about that?
Yeah.
And this one, Brian Blumkotz gives me a lot. Gives me says I've overdone it, but I don't think I can overdo something.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. And that is, and we haven't even talked about Calavra yet.
I mentioned her.
Yeah.
As the mother of
Absolutely.
Sestra. That's the only. Yeah. So far, that's the only thing.
And that is Alita Norbalos out of the Slavers reference. In line to become the head despotrix of Hardby, and is evil and actually works with the Slavers because she hates Greyhawk so much she thinks she's gonna do them to their bidding. Well, she's a real, I don't want to use any naughty words, but she's a real pain in the ass in Greyhawk. And if any of you watched what happened the end of last year, repercussions in Hardby, the entire city was afire because of what happened at one of her allied slaver ships. The group was smart enough; they thought that they actually took one out, and from the great Michael, another villain, a PC villain, Michael Baton, if you know my campaign, but someone ratted him out, and then she unleashed hell on all the player characters, all the ships, and killed off some people, completely destroyed the Temple of Zilchus, burned everyone inside alive. It was nasty. She was scorned. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting plot point that has big political ramifications and stuff. That's super interesting. That's really
right,
cool.
and she's a head judge, so it's like this is all behind the scenes, of course.
Yeah, you mean you open old political can of worms here that can really play out big. That's interesting. Yep.
And it's fun, and it's good to have that kind of character that everyone wants to kill off, but they don't know how. And actually, one of my NPCs in the one group, Reckless Indifference, is your younger sister, who hates her, and she's a character neutral, so she wants to do something about her, but she can't. There's nothing she can do at that point. So there's some cool things. I like having that kind of fun with my. They know the player characters. You get to that point where they get, you get that twinge of anger, and then they let out the frustrations at some point on someone else.
That's when you know that a villain works, so to speak. When you get that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so let's see what we got out here. We got any other characters mentioned out here as far as a specific baddie in Greyhawk? Let's bring out the Calavra. Let's just talk about her, and we don't have to go between who's she worships and any of that stuff. We don't need to have that argument unless you want to. But man, she's in a lot of publications, isn't she? She's all over the place.
Seems to be one of Gary's favorite back in the day because she's so often mentioned in the Gord books and stuff too. So yeah.
And original to the G series, which makes it even more special. That old. So Mike, Jason, like, what are your references to her, and you ever utilized her at all, or beyond G series or the D series, or
you want this, Jason?
What's that? Both of you.
Well, the references. There's so many references. Yeah. I mean, and like Anna brings up with the Gord books, Calavra and Lita, who were the original and clone, they're just all throughout, especially the last 3 books of the series. They're such important characters. And for me, I started playing back with the Holmes Basic in '77, and we first started with the heavy modules with the G series, and we handed things back and forth back then, and I finally got to DM starting with the D series. And so the entire business with the Calavra became so important in my campaigning. And at that point, I pretty much just stuck with the role of DM from then on out. So Calavra, besides being so heavily used within Gygax's novels and campaign material, for me, she's always been a strong part of how my Greyhawk campaign. But she has been a little bit of above. She's more legendary than anything else.
Okay.
She's a bit above the kind of characters I run anymore.
So you put her like a step below Charybdis, and like once, right in that area.
Well, in a way, but as Anna's saying, it's more of a political thing. It's like my characters really don't run into to kings too often, and Eclavdra is the leader of the rebel drow in my campaign. And like you were saying, Loth or the elemental evil, and I throw in a second thing is that elemental evil for me is a Lovecraftian thing. For me, I use the mythos. So Eclavdra is, she's a political leader. She's high priestess of a kind of Cthulhu mythos thing. She's a good weaver for tales, but she's a little more powerful than my characters will ever encounter again.
There are, there are some levels of characters that you want to talk about that you, if you start interacting them with PCs, you're going to either have a major change in your campaign or you're going to have a wipe, right? It's one or the other. If they defeat, like if you take them up against, we were just talking about Gary and I were just going back and forth on Stallman Klim, who is the head of the Earth Dragon cult, right? And a slaver.
Yeah, Dominic from Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, and like he has Earthquake because they get like 7th level Earth Sphere spells lower.
Pretty powerful.
There's no save. Opens up, gone, right? And that it's nasty. So there's a lot of massive. When you get on that level of the Eclavdra, if you're gonna kill her off, you better make sure that that's the direction you want your campaign to go. And it's tough. It's tough. What do you do with that? As a DM, right? Mike, what do you think? What would you like? Have you ever attempted to a published source villain? And I'm talking about a module one. I'm talking about like of these eras. Have you ever said, "I got it. That's it. That character's out." And the party was successful. You know what I'm saying?
Too much.
Yeah, like Corruptus is. You could take Corruptus out in White Plume Mountain, but his thing, he's all over the place still. But
Well, first, real quick, I've never used Eclavdra.
Okay.
I'm finding out. I've referenced her in my comics more than I have in gameplay, which is weird. Also, Stallman Klim, very cool. Only villain that I've ever used who I think actually assaulted the city of Greyhawk. That campaign got out of hand. Earthquake, though, could make nasty work of the city walls. As to villains who are just out there, the only one who I ever promised my players I would never use again, because I overdid it, was Vecna. Like, not the artifacts, but Vecna himself. Those were some really high-level AD&D campaigns, and I just, it got to the point where, they kept expecting me to pop Vecna, and I was like, all right, I swear, Scout's honor, no more Vecna. And I've held to it ever since.
Cool. And you just are like, hey, that's where it is at this point, and so be it, right? And your campaign is your campaign, right?
Yeah. And there's just plenty of other villains to go around. Why? Maybe that's why I don't like Ayu so much. It's like he's in everything. There's got to be some other villains, to work on.
Absolutely. Smart point. So,
yeah, I agree with Gary. The cult of Vecna is pretty cool.
Yeah, the cult itself, and that's it. That's a great thing. You don't have to go against Vecna. You can go up against the cult. So yeah, Igwolf, I agree, is burned out too.
I was
agree
very cool
100%. Yeah, Igwolf is transcended too. So
yeah.
All right, so let's free for all this. Someone else up here want to bring up someone?
Well, I can take my little take on Eclavdra, and I've only used her once in all my gaming career. As a kind of villain, and it was only as a kind of in the side notes, because in my campaign, Eclavdra was the she defected from Lolth and the drow, so to speak, and joined Grast and became a cleric of his, and his kind of ambassador in the underworld, so in the Underdark, so to speak, and started cult. And then she was so damn successful that Grast kind of took notice of her, and they started having a relationship, and she became really powerful that way, and instigator, and she replaced Igvilv, so to speak. So they became Igvilv and El Klabda became rivals, if nothing else, from relationship reasons, because they had the same boyfriend, so to speak, or had the same boyfriend. And then eventually El Klabda and Grast kind of fell out of they didn't like each other all of a sudden. Grasti was out doing so many other things, and Klabda probably wanted to do that too. So they was semi-amicable, because Clever always reminds saying that, well, Igvilv is the ass one, so to speak. I'm the good one, so to speak. So Gira still gives Clavdra spells and powers, but she doesn't really serve her, and that's why Gira's now using Sestra to keep an eye on her mother, so to speak. So it's kind of a complicated family relation that kind of gives them. Oops, we'll see if I froze here, but we'll see.
You're okay. You're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I try to use them politically and implications and stuff, just to complicate it for the players. But the only time I used it was that there was some sort of kind of political gathering, and the characters happened to be there, wanted to get in and get information or whatever it was. And Clara was one of the power brokers in the room, in the other end of the room, so to speak, and they had to deal with her underlings, so to speak, or her entourage. That's the only time I've used her directly, but she's been there in the background often in many of my adventures through the years. Yeah.
And she's in the background a lot when you think about the G
Yeah.
series and the D.
Yep.
I mean, even there. So.
Yep.
But then
I
again,
kept that tradition. Yep.
everyone wants a tentacle rod.
Yeah.
All right. Someone pop up one.
I want one. You said you wanted to have villains that was just on the sidelines, just to kind of complicate things or whatever. I have one that I used in my Rel Devin campaign. Basically, when I grew up, there was always one angry old dude that was kind of, every time you walked over his backyard or front yard or something like that, he was angry and yelled at you through the window or whatever. So I realized I wanted. No, don't say that, Jason. But so I realized that in my Rel Devin campaign, I wanted to have someone that filled that role. He was not an active part of the plots really, but he had this little turf, and the characters needed to. It was a shortcut that was kind of difficult, and I wanted to make it difficult. So I found out that in Rel Devin there is a character that I think he was invented in the Undying. I think it's Prince Ferdinand. He's Ferdinand. He is a prince of the House of Crandon. So he's been part of the royal structure in Rel Devon for hundreds of years. He's several hundred years old. He's a necromancer vampire. So he's been around for a long time, and he's 15th level described in the books there. And so I realized, and he lives in what they call Black Splinter. He has his hideout in a like little marshy area in the middle of, on the borderland between what used to be Ulmore and Rel Devon. And so he hangs out there. So I simply, okay, he was described as this kind of instigator who's been there forever, and he hates everybody basically, and so he doesn't want to be involved, but he hates everybody equally. And so I realized he's kind of cool. So I realized he can't just sit there and defend his property by himself. So, and he has one helper, and he's called Shadwell. He's mentioned in the books as a lower level vampire necromancer or general wizard or something that is a bit lower level. So I realized I needed to beef up. So I gave him a kind of a gardener, gatekeeper, groundskeeper that kind of keeps the surrounding area clear. And she's called Ishma, and she's a night hag. And she has a little night hag coven. And she also runs a little side business. And she has a little hut where she sells magical components and stuff. So if you need a nasty spell component that you can't get anywhere else, she has it for sale. And she has a little inn where you can stay overnight, and if you behave really well and so on, you will not be the next day's menu.
If you behave well.
Yeah, if you behave well. So that was, and it was one of these things that the character party could kind of stumble upon or hear about, and so on. So that was the Ishma. Her name is Ishma. And also Ferdinand also have a black dragon. That is the Ratukash, that she lives in the swamp area there too, and she is the one that fends off all all the intruders that Ferdinand don't want on the property, and he feeds her treasure and prisoners and whatever, so she can simply hunt on his property, and so they have a mutual relationship that way. So that was kind of a nasty kind of backyard villain that I wanted to have at fairly high level that could scare the characters even all the way up. But all these lower henchmen and stuff were the perfect, like Shadwell was the perfect more kind of low level villains for the characters. When they were third, fourth, fifth level, I could terrorize them with Shadwell, and then when they stumble in on the ground, I could use
His boss.
Ishma. That was the moving up a ladder. So when they were like fifth to 10th level, Ishma and her couple of hags were terrifying for them. And then when they moved up to like 12th, 13th level, then Ratukash could come in and live, scare the bejesus out of them, and then they could reach into Ferdinand and get invited, and he can take a look at, see what's going on, so to speak. But that was my local backyard when they get angry, so to speak. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice one. Gary just mentioned Dragatha.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Someone want to pick that discussion up?
I have her as a part in my upcoming campaign. I don't want to spill too many beans, but it's not her so much. She's a Draco Lich, but her bones and her phylactery and her remains and her lair is really powerful. That's like an artifact for dragons. So what I have it now is that there will be dragons who will fight to find her lair and to fight over the remains of what remains of Dragatha after all these years.
Okay.
So that is one of the plots in my campaign. I don't want to elaborate too much on it, but that's one of my plot hooks for the campaign that I'm going to introduce early, but it will not play any, it will play out in the background, and it will be one of these things that happens in the background that the characters might get involved in later on in the campaign, or they might just pass beyond the character's interest or not. But I always want to have subplots or side plots that can become because I run them very sandboxy. So I always need to, it's not something that the characters will be involved in, but it's something that goes on in the general vicinity that might affect what the character's doing, or might become what characters want to get themselves involved in later on. And Dragatha and her phylactery and her bones and her remains and her as a demi-lich is something that will be fought over, because in my campaign, my setting, dragon bones is hot stuff, because that is used to raise new dragons. So that's used, instead of treasure, you can use dragon bones in order to incubate your eggs. And that means that Dragatha's lair is the coolest thing you can get in order to raise your dragon
Circle of life.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
No, there's no guide rails. No, absolutely.
No, exactly. No guide rails. No. Yep.
Those people in the castle at the end of the summer are in for a fun time and a deadly time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. that will play part in this. I think we'll see. I have given them 6 different plot points in the form of it's like the road to Null is one. And that's the wizard Null, and there's I have a bunch of these kind of almost like a rebus. It's like a thing that doesn't say much unless you really know your Greyhawk. Then
you're like, oh,
yeah. I'll see if I can find them here. So hang on a second.
Yes, absolutely.
I found them here.
You gotta have that. I mean,
yeah. Hang on a second. Where the heck?
And you got multiple days of doing this. So you got a lot of prep coming up.
Yeah, we got them. Gibbering break.
Okay.
Gibbering break is one of them. Yep. And one is Sephrin's Vengeance. Old Knights Ride Again.
Nice.
And one is Road to Null is one. And those are the ones I gave to them. I have a couple of other ones, but I'm not going to spill those.
Okay. And they're all options for them.
Yes, exactly. So they could pick and choose.
What you want to write? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Lots of villains in that.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. So let's talk. We didn't talk about Null in the Boneheart. Let's talk about him real quick, because I love that he's the experimenter par extraordinaire that he's called,
Yeah.
and he's always trying to make this zombie that if you kill it, it explodes in a acid firestorm, right? An acid storm,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
It says, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. So imagine you being the experimenter on this. He can't get it not to explode if it gets killed within 20 feet of a priest of Ayus. So imagine all the
Yep.
priests of Ayus that he
Yep.
it just that doesn't work.
Yep.
So imagine being the dude or the lady who has to stand there like, I don't want to be a priest of Ayus anymore.
Yeah.
As that thing's blowing up.
Yeah, he's the villain that one of IU's top servants or henchmen that survived simply because he was not in the limelight so much, and he was not. He wasn't overly competent, but he was, on the other hand, he didn't screw up. He was simply survived out of chance. I think it was, he would describe that way in IU's the evil. I think it's kind of funny written. So he's kind of a half comic sidekick. So yeah.
So Daka, the gentleman who ran. All right, so the gentleman, Draco wrote the book you got, Daka. Just so you know, the gentleman, Casey, who played in my game, he wrote this, and you and Mech 45 got with the last 2 copies of this. Now they're all gone for us. Just so you know, that's where it came from. So Daka, thank you for letting me know that you got it. So everything was I finally sent out everything from the. Got it all out. Once I got all addresses and all, I got all the complimentary gifts out to everyone. So that was cool. So thank you for letting me know on that, man. Absolutely. So yeah, it's a great book.
Cool.
All right, so come on, Jason, you got to have another one.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to bring up just the whole the Gygax novels. They take villains from street gangs all the way up to Therisden. And if you ever want to do a Greyhawk Link campaign in the Hells, in those planes, the last books in the series, they go into great detail, naming villain after villain, demonic, devilish, daemon. There's endless descriptions of the planes and the creatures there. And like when we're talking about Vuron, or you want to talk about Grast, or I'm not sure how you'd say that name.
The squabbles among the demons are awesome. They are so good. And I can hold up the books here while you're talking.
Yes. Well, the most of the demonic stuff now, like that one right there, the first one you're holding up, that's actually showing what a Cambion demon, where Gord is fighting a Cambion. And remember, that is what half Uz is a half Cambion, isn't he?
Yes.
So he's a Cambion, he's a half demon. So yeah.
So in those books, there are so many different villainous creatures. Now, Sea of Death, that's the one that covers the old Sea of the Ash Wastelands.
Oh, hang on a second. I'll find that one too here somewhere. Sea of Death.
That's where you start finding about Eclavdra and Leda.
Yeah, exactly. I should
have.
I'll find it somewhere.
Details.
Yep.
Eclavdra, Leda, Zuckmoy, Igwivil, Obmi, the dwarf, who's a classic villain. They're all detailed in that series. Sea of Death.
Here we have Sea of Death.
I kind of, that to me, that is my favorite for resources. Now, I don't know, I'm not big on Gygax's narrative prose anymore, but I love the books for detail.
If you're into Greyhawk, you need to read these. Yeah,
seriously.
And this is one super good, and the other one is another one is Come Endless Darkness.
Come Endless Darkness.
Yeah, that is Ayus, I think, and that's Therisden, if I remember correctly.
That's Therisden eating. That's Ayus being just cast away like nothing in the hands of Therisden.
Yep.
And Dance of Demons, and
this is Dance of Demons. Yep.
I like the lower camp level campaigns, and there is plenty in there in the earlier books that discuss the beginnings of Gordon, so the earlier villains and everything.
This is Greyhawk City, described wonderfully. And there's a companion book to this one, and it's called The City of Hawks.
City of Hawks is when they reintroduced it for their new Infinities label.
Okay.
And it covers the city of Greyhawk and these petty villains, One of the ones where you talk about a mid-range villain is Theobald, the Beggar Master.
Yeah, King
And
of
he is
Junk.
such a good,
Beautiful.
disgusting
Yep.
villain. And he has this group of villains working for him because he has all these beggars wanting to be thieves. It's a good campaign. I've used it as a campaign myself in my series, is the Beggar Thieves Guild War. And it is just fantastic, loaded down with interesting little tidbits, little character names and mentions. Knight Errant is an anthology of stories. Right there, you have that is a scene from Castle Greyhawk, if you can believe it or not. And that is just it. That book, A Knight Errant, gives you lists of all these street names and inns, but it also gives you all these different characters. One of them is this story called The Five Dragon Bowl. It introduces this villain named Master Yao, who is from the Sufang dynasty. So it's the of the Asian dynasties, the Sufang kingdom, the first description of something beyond the borders of the Flanaess or the Baklunish Empire. And that is somewhere out there. Gygax was talking about the Sufang kingdom, and he had Master Yao there. And Master Yao is surprisingly a servant of Neril. Neril's a big villain in those books. And I just wanted to make sure before we got any further that we talked a little about the wealth of material in these Gygax novels. And like I said, you have to have a good villain to have a good adventure. And if you want a source book for villains, you go through those novels, and you will find huge numbers of villains for you to use in your campaign.
And you have another demon, that Kostiche, the guy with the biggest maul in the world, so to speak, and he's so angry, and he's like the barbarian of demons, but short-tempered, short-sighted, kind of.
Oh, the one from Monster Manual 2 they brought out, that demon?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
He's in those books too.
Oh,
so
awesome.
a whole bunch of them. So it's so many.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a whole menagerie of demons, and you get to see and listen in on their angry meetings. I mean, Gras trying to broke power with them and turn one into a toad or whatever it is. And it's kind of those are. I would love to see that act on a movie. Those would be fantastic. If a good director could make movie out of that, that would be fantastic.
So, Jason, what do you have on your reference point to Zane with an X that Gary brought up, asking if anyone had used him in that person in your campaign? Xaene.
Zane.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure if I have him because that's Rob Kuntz's version of Zagig, isn't it?
I'm asking because I've not used. That's why I'm asking.
Zane's the court wizard of Idit.
There you
Yes,
go.
yeah.
Okay.
And he's being replaced by Karulk, I think, after the late of his, I think. Yeah.
And I've got some references for it.
Yeah, I was just curious as to in what context he'd be utilized as obviously as a mover and shaker behind the scenes with stuff.
Yeah. I used Karulk's after when the mayhem had went down in Rossi's. Karulk's familiar, a black cat, escaped, and he became the villain of a little village with a lot of idiots in it. He took control of the village and was the major. That's a mini villain that I used, so to speak, a micro villain, a little cat.
A two-headed
had
lich.
Enough magical powers and could persuade a bunch of locals in a village and make them do all sorts of evil deeds, and he was the evil mastermind of the village. He was a runaway familiar.
If he's the accursed, he probably is a two-headed lich now, Gary. He's called the accursed.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gribbly used Zane in the Great Kingdom campaign. He was responsible for the birth of one of the PCs who didn't know that they were a Cambion until they died and were resurrected at mid-level. Cool.
Oh, wow.
Great idea,
awesome,
man.
twist.
Great connection, too. I appreciate
He's
you.
mentioned back in Dragon 59.
Excellent. Neat.
And thank you, Jason, for going over all the books. That was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So real quick, before any box sets were out, before any anything, any deities were even out. This is pre-Dragon, 58. We had the Dark Brotherhood, and the Dark Brotherhood was our evil antithesis in our campaign against the Order of Ulick, and they worked in the Sus and the Pomars and the Wild Coast, and they were led by Makarash the Elf Mauler. I was young, so I had dumb names. And he would have armies come up through the Sus and always attack Selene, and he was before. Oh my God! The head of the Assassins Guild was level. You knew what his levels were. This guy,
Oh,
you know,
Thurin Deathstalker or whatever. his name
Makarash was a dual class fighter assassin. Just so they stole that. Yeah, Turin Deathstalker stole from Makarash. That's what he was. Dual class fighter assassin, human, and it was so that was our evil antithesis for the early years of the campaign. And I'm talking 80, let's say 82 to 86. That realm, maybe into a little bit into 87. Yeah, we did our original Temple of Elemental Evil we did was in 87, and so those early years, that's when maybe going up even before the City of Greyhawk came out. So the Secret Box Set was 92, correct? That realm, I think it was. So yeah, those
Yeah, I
early,
think so.
yeah, the
Yeah.
80s was all Dark Brotherhood fighting, and then oh my God, they have Greyhawk deities out now, and because the Dark Brotherhood worshipped because the Deities and Demigods book was out, right? So you had one deity for every demi-human, right? You had one, um, unless you had the gods of the elves and all those articles, you could get them from there. But you didn't really have Greyhawk deities until those articles came out. So they worshipped Hysi, the god of evil, which was we used a lot of Finnish mythology back then. We liked
Same.
that. So you did too, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
I used the hell out of that book.
yeah, we still have Uko in our campaign to this day. It's and we have the Ilmater version, not the Forgotten Realms Ilmater, but the Ilmater from the Finnish deities in our campaign to this day. There's a lot of Shieldlanders worship Ilmater in our campaign instead of Arrhenius. It's when you go back that far and you get villains, it's of my making. It's the only one I'll discuss in my campaign tonight. But it's cool that you know I had to create that all myself, and that's what you got to do. You got to come up with these ideas of you got to keep your players interested in something small scale on the adventures, but grand scale on what's going on in the entire world. That's what turns it into a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 16, 34 years ago, everything started in Verberbach. Well, Robcast 21. That's because were you doing a lot of Temple of Elemental Evil?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Verberbach's a great place to start. That whole area. It's like a free city. It's like and there's there's not as much written up as there should be. I think on that. You have divers. You have divers in that area. We've seen some divers maps pop up on the Flemish Geographical Society here and there, right? And then you see some Verberbach maps too occasionally pop up. So Greyhawk is Swedish and Norwegian deities. Well, if I recall, wasn't Thor the first deity of that Gary used before Thor and Odin? I think were the two that they originally used before they made their own deities.
That's before, because I
Yeah, he
started
used Thor
when
and
the
Odin.
Yep.
Please go on.
Yeah, Gribbly, I'm all the same thing with Scarlet Brotherhood. I barely use the Scarlet Brotherhood in my campaign at all. So at all. So.
And I agree with Gribbly that I call it Shar, the Kingdom of Shar.
And explain that to me why.
Because it gives all the other nations an outward appearance that it's not a place that they can go conquer because there's already a kingdom there, but they don't know anything about it. Everything they know about the Kingdom of Shar is a lie.
The D&D channel's hosting our stream.
Oh.
Thank you so very much to that. That's it. Thank you. I hope you are enjoying what we're talking about tonight on Legends and Lore. I'm Jay, a.k.a. Lurkin Zumba, and we have Adam Meyer, Greyhawk Mike, and
Mike Burgess,
Jason Savoda, all on this discussion. So thank you so very much. Thank you for the follow, Rob.
Villains tonight.
Villains is tonight's discussion point. So we're trying to crank this up. We got about 15 minutes left, so please enjoy the rest of the show here.
Yeah, this is Greyhawk Gygax's old campaign. First setting for D&D.
First setting ever for D&D, and I mean, like I said, I went to Dragonlance once or twice.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, but you
Brought
started so
Lorana
early.
back. All sorts of
Yeah.
crazy stuff. But never
Yeah, but
Forgotten
you
Realms.
But you
No.
started so early, so there wasn't that much published material for you to. I started gaming when you
Yeah.
did, but I didn't start running my Greyhawk games until like 5 years after. So it was like 85, 80, yeah, something 80, yeah, about 85 when I started, and then I had a bit more to go on, so to speak. So I never used the Nordic gods much. I didn't use them at all in my. But on the other hand, that was something we learned in school, so it wasn't that interesting. So I kind of, yeah, I grew up with them. So that way I.
Let's try and. No, Animus is so.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's. Mm-hmm.
You know what I like about Animus is Gary, and that's
what?
by the way D&D. That's Gary Hooligan. Gary, I like that. I threw them into our Mega Stream event because I didn't have to explain Swain. How the Falcon turned them into Animuses. It's perfect for making a player character into an undead nemesis, right? Because you don't have to
Yeah,
really explain anything. They're not a vampire, so they don't sunlight and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's at least they serve
yeah,
a purpose. But
yeah.
I
I
agree with you
used.
on that.
Yeah, I use
Yeah.
Animus as basically not so much as villains to play against, but I used it as a way that they could torture, meaning that player characters could end up being an Animus and be screwed, so to speak. So yeah.
Boy, I'm Gribbly's on it. I agree.
Rocking
Ibid the
and rolling.
Undying would have been amazing if it had been put out sooner.
Yes.
I wish it was just put out, man. If it didn't
Oh,
die,
okay. Yeah.
you,
But
you
it
know,
came out. I remember downloading it from the AOL forums or wherever it was. We popped up first, and someone did a PDF fairly early on that was formatted reasonably well, and they released the art and the maps for it, and that was so good because there was heraldry or is heraldry on
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
cover, and I used that for that was actually the Ivid's royal seal, that heraldry that appeared. That's how I used it in my campaign.
I
Anna
would have
believes
loved
it's
to.
the best
Mm.
publication ever made, don't you? I mean, as far as detail and
Oh yeah,
geography
it's up
goes.
there. It's definitely up
Yeah.
there among
So,
the best.
sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, I just would have loved to seen Sargent's take on 576. That's one of the things where I talk about eras is just, you could take any era that none of these have been. Even Sargent never was able to detail things out, in the fully because it's a world to talk about, and even if it's just the section of Flyness, there's so much to write about that it's beyond any one small time period of creators to create the whole thing. Sargent did about the best. Now, um, Sargent is for me very memorable for like you kind of talk about Count Zephyrin. He's memorable for me for the villains he created as well as the other details. But I don't use him as such. But I'll take back his mentions and his character write-ups back to my 576. I'm doing a 579 campaign, but it's basically out of the folio and box set.
Right, right. I understand what you're saying there, but you could implement. I mean, there's things you can implement from Eyes the Evil or the Marklands or the Slavers, or even from the Ashes if you wanted to. And a little bits and pieces here. I'm not talking about the wars, but there's some cool things in them.
Yeah,
Yep.
I never liked those Boneheart. I know they're very popular, but I have a different idea on the Uz in my campaign. Uz is imposter. The real Uz is still gone, and the one who's on the throne is a weak imposter. And
Oh,
there's a
that's
bunch
an
of
interesting
machinations
take.
going on.
Yeah.
So he's not in a position to like overthrow any other neighboring states. He's trying to remain in power within the domain that he has right there.
Why?
What
All right, so
happened?
Mike, why'd you say that as a joke?
Why,
Why'd you ban? Yeah, why'd you say
why
that?
ban Gary?
Yeah.
Adapting Venture to Greyhawk, you may as well add Skeletor and Mumra along.
That's how you get banned in this chat.
uh, well, Casey says if Wardu can get to Greyhawk from the realm, so can Vanger. No.
Mhm.
Mm,
One of
Nah.
my One of my big villains that I've introduced in doing the Backloonish is Sutek the Destroyer from the Tom Baker Doctor Who
Oh,
Mars.
nice.
Oh yeah, because I remember that one too. Because what's her name says, just jump back in time, and you go back and the Earth's destroyed because it says, oh, we gotta fix it now. That was like a mega one. That was like 6 or 7 episodes, wasn't it? It was huge.
Oh, I don't know. That was just absolutely one of my very favorite Doctor Who's.
Yeah. Well,
And but that character Sutek the Destroyer, and so he's been imprisoned. And he's finally when they broke open the Temple of Elemental Evil, they broke open some of his restraints as well. So he's starting to bleed back into this universe, and he's got these minions now, the minions of Sutek over in Zyph, who are coming out. Because for me, Zyph's very Egyptian.
so
Hmm.
I'm gonna
Hmm.
put this out there for you, Jason. And I know it's kind of a minor sour point out there, but Dark Tower is all about set, right? In Sutek, the
Oh
Judges
yeah,
Guild.
oh yeah, oh I love that.
Yeah, that's I mean, by far it's the best publication they ever did, in my opinion. It's on my wall of fame with 24 modules we've done over the last 40 years, and it's one of only 3 that are non-TSR published. But yeah, I was going to say that's a great tie-in. That would be
Jack
cool.
Waze is a genius. Yeah.
Well, so so as we're winding down here, Gary brings up another one: the God of Zvarts, Raxavort.
Yeah, oh yes, that's a good one too.
Oh my gosh, another good one.
Yeah, I just want to say I have that Dark Tower in Bissell.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We placed ours in multiple spots, but we had ours like in the county of Ulick, on the border of the Lort Mills once. So yeah. So why are Zvarts blue? I could never figure that one out, but I guess because Raxavort's that weird color too. But Zvarts
Stand out. Yeah.
Zvarts are one of those things that came out in Fiend Folio, and you're like, this is interesting, And then who wrote Gary? Who wrote up Raxavort? Do you know who did? Yeah, Evil Smurfs. That's exactly right, Mystery. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're
that
the
movie.
they're the Evil Smurfs. I
Yeah.
love using Zvarts instead of kobolds. It's throw a little wrench in there because they're all that
Yep.
same level,
I
So
thought that that was one of Sergeant's.
was it Sergeant Raxavort?
I thought so.
According to Gary, it was Gary Gygax as well.
Yeah, he's in the original
Yeah,
list.
so that's cool. So, guys, we're
Put it up
winding
on-
down here, and it's been another great discussion. And I know we're gonna have some
We go on and on.
yeah.
shout outs. And while everyone's going, I'm going to shout out my three companions for this evening. So, Anna, what do you got going on?
Oh, I have way too much going on right now. It's GaryCon in like a month, so I have all the stuff that I need to do for that. So I have one big secret. My biggest commission ever is for Cobalt Press. I'm wrapping that up. That needs to be done before Cobalt Press for a project that hasn't been announced yet. So that is something I'm wrapping up. So that's why I just wrote a blog post before we went on here saying I'm so sorry to my patrons because I haven't posted anything for almost a week. So that, and I'm also getting geared up to create all the lot of graphics and stuff for Gryffindor Games. I'm going to start a Kickstarter next week. So I've been involved in doing a hell of a lot of graphics and the map and stuff for that one. And I'm also working on, now we're going over to Greyhawk stuff, the interesting bit here for us. And I'm working on my river map. So I have a few more days to work on that. So it will definitely come out next week. That's for sure. So I'm getting to my patrons for get the river map, and it has a little bit of that what you call feature creep when you do computer games and stuff. I've added more and more features to it that I didn't initially thought I needed or I haven't thought about. So it will be kind of, I hope, a real cool addition to the maps. My map product, so to speak, that you can play Greyhawk. So it's basically a map that tells you how wide the rivers are, where you can travel with so and so type of boat up the rivers.
Oh wow!
And it's I'm pointing out where the major falls, like waterfalls and stuff are, like where the Niagara Falls or the Flanies are located, basically, and stuff. So which rivers freeze over in winter, etc. So there's a whole bunch of information like that. And then I have a whole bunch of project concepts and stuff that I want to show for my seminar at GaryCon. So a couple of them I've done my concept sketches and stuff. So I have 3 or 4 kind of cool, interesting new ideas that I want to work with. And so that I'm going to talk, and a whole bunch of slides. And also I'm printing a version of the 576 map. I'm printing it on 6611 by 17 sheets of paper, of premium photo paper. So it will be 1200 DPI version of it. So yeah.
How many of them are you printing doubles for Josh Pop?
I print 6 of them. There will be 6 of them for. I printed 4 already. I'm going to see if I can print another 2, so he will get 6.
So the great thing is that Goon Taka, I don't think he's on tonight. He donated a certain amount during the 24-hour Greyhawk Mega Stream event, and he was in the top like 8, and his pick was Anna's maps and high resolution as his bonus. So he'll be getting them, and he said just hand them over to him at GaryCon. So just note that you know, super high resolution is an awesome thing. So
and I'm also going to create a handout like I had last year for GaryCon. So there will be another handout showing some cool stuff, and it will be I think that one will be 13 by 18. The handout, that was what I managed to print last year. So I will print a couple hundred of them and hand out to all the people that come to my seminar and the people that come to the Greyhawk fandom fan creation.
Which 3 of us up here are all in, myself and Mike and Anna and a couple others, and like Alan Growy and Christoph, Brian Blumklotz, and Carlos, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be
that was basically, that was what I'm working on at the moment. Yep.
Awesome. Mike.
Well, I just recently wrapped up my Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign. Got through 6 of the 7 adventures. I felt the 7th one was just not, I wasn't feeling it, but I had a really good time running through those. I would recommend that book to anyone. Otherwise, I am busily working on some Sea Princess stuff. I don't know how much of it's going to make it into Orth Journal, but if there is any leftovers, I'll put it on my blog.
Great.
Which is updated twice a week. Anna, I got like a dozen new towns in Sea Princes.
Then we have to make sure we get them on the next edition of the map.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about them.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's good. Awesome. Oh, and you have not gotten any sign-ups yet because of the sign-up issue at GaryCon, correct? Okay.
My seminar is like 5 sign-ups, so there should be like 35 tickets.
Yeah, we will talk about that in a second because
you
it's
can mention
silly.
it when you.
But Jason, what's going on, brother?
Well, I'm doing a couple things. I'm currently running a 5e Ghost of Saltmarsh, so for my blog, I'm working on a novelization of the Ghost of Saltmarsh adventure, the one that just came out for 5e, last year. And then I've written in the past, my blog posts tend to be little snippets of things. So I'm compiling my work I've done on Verbabank, on the Land of Black Ice Blackmoor, and on the Threlonian Peninsula, which is for me, is a Viking campaign. It's no bones about that. I don't run Sul Barbarians. I run Displaced Vikings. So those are the 3 that I've done a lot of different work on. If you look at the blog, you can find the bits and pieces. But I want to pull it all together into something a little more coherent.
Nice.
Now, as far as bits and pieces coming out for future projects, I've gotten very interested in the Backlunish West. So hopefully I'll be doing a lot of bits and pieces on the various kingdoms, nations, and histories. One of the things I've started to do is to write little snippets of past history. So you can find a little snippet about Alyssa and her nightingale, the nightingale. You can find out about the first vampire. You can find out about the Battle of the Fortnight's Length. You can find out about what really happened with the Invoked Devastation. But
Ooh.
it's all just a little paragraph and a picture. But hopefully it'll give you ideas for greater things. So that's what I'm going to be working on in the near future. So it's some fiction work and some bits and pieces. I like doing trying to pick up a picture and write a little blurb as an adventure
Yeah.
or an NPC every day. I haven't been up to it in the last month and a half. I've been sick, but I'm hopefully going to be getting back in gear again. So that's if you check out the blog, you should be able to see that stuff coming along. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's at least like 100 NPCs on there and dozens of adventure ideas and dozens of write-ups you could look at.
Excellent.
Awesome.
All right, I'll probably forget stuff, but here's what's going on. I got 2 more broadcasts until I'm going to be on a week hiatus because with real life, I'll be down in Florida from Wednesday to Sunday next week. And it's mandatory for my work, but boo-hoo, right? Going to Captiva. Yeah, exactly.
It's terrible work, but
It's
someone has to
terrible.
do it.
It's
Yep.
terrible. So tomorrow night we finish up adventure number 873, The Taint of the Falcon. And it goes this way: the residual effect of the Falcon's power she acquired during the 24-hour mega stream. She's been defeated during that, but now every single undead thing in the city basically was animated by her power, and now they're going around trying to clean up the mess. So the Windborne Mercenary Company's doing this, and it's going as well as can be expected. So they're fighting some nasty stuff. They're going to fight someone of quote unquote legend in my campaign, kind of at the end, that has been interred in one of these crypts that you may see it if you watched last Thursday at the end. That'll be pretty interesting. I tease some pics out there of the underground section. Actually, normally I don't put the monsters in. This time I did. So you can actually see a picture of the final fight. And then Sunday will be our last stream for almost 10 days, unfortunately. And then we continue our very exciting and in-depth demi-human series with delving into gnomes of Greyhawk. Okay, so I think it's going to be a fun one, just like Halflings was last week. Man, there are some really interesting gnome names out there in our campaign, like Rumple Foreskin, and just it gets Boyd.
I wish I hadn't missed the halfling episode. Dang it.
Oh, you can watch
Yeah,
it.
it was
You
a
can
great
watch the
one.
vid
Yep.
on that. It was a good one. We had a nice discussion. Jason participated along with Will, because Will from Return to the Bandit Kingdoms, Wicked Studios LLC. Funkin' Hottie Peak is a major NPC in my campaign, Mystery Cycle, from the G series. He's third in command of the Order of Ulick, if you do not know that. So that is an important. Funkin' Hottie Peak is actually an elf, not a gnome. So there's a lot of gnomes are. With the way gnomes were in 1E2E, they can be really nasty antitheses as well. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some other fun things with gnomes. And then that'll be it for a week and a half. After Sunday, our next Legends and Lore, which will be the first when we come back, will be the following Legends and Lore episode 41. We go back to Living Greyhawk. Living Greyhawk, Verbabonk, and the Shieldlands. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. I have 3 gentlemen coming on. Of course, I don't know where that paper is. Vernon Vincent will be back with Jeff Dauberpool, who missed the last one because of his flight getting delayed for Shieldlands, and joining also will be Ron Lundeen, and those 3 will come on and discuss both their areas and go over some interesting discussion on what happened in both Verbabonk and the Shieldlands areas during Living Greyhawk, and that'll be one of 2 Legends and Lores in March, because last week we're all traveling to GaryCon that Wednesday.
Yep.
You know, so we'll have only 2 Legends of Lore, unfortunately, in March, but that's okay because we'll have make some nice memories at
Just wait till
GaryCon.
Legends Lore after. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's what's going on now. I wanted to say one thing that I was very happy about. I know it was a disaster what happened for the silver signups for GaryCon, and it went down. They delayed it an hour first, and then for 20 minutes you could sign up.
If you were lucky.
If you
Most
put
people
stuff
didn't work. Yeah.
because they put it in their cart and didn't check out. Now I got lucky because I only signed up for one event because we're doing everything else. So I will want to say I am very happy I got into the Legends tournament. I'm excited about playing in that and seeing who's going to DM for me. There's 108 people in it.
Sure.
I'm excited about just doing that. And my Friday is booked. I got my DM adventure, a Delve in the Lord's Tomb at 9 a.m. I miss yours, Anna. I run from that to the 3 o'clock Greyhawk fandom celebration from 3 to 5.
Yeah.
I get an hour, 40 minutes break, and then I go and do this tournament from 6 to 10. So it's a book day, and then it's going to be a long one, but that's okay. I think it'll be a blast. So
You need some downtime to hang out.
well,
actually.
I have downtime Thursday night, and then Saturday we have my streaming seminar in the morning, and then I'm done, and I'm there all day Saturday and all day Sunday with nothing scheduled. So definitely a lot of I set that up that way. Get all the work stuff out of the way first. So that's what's going on. I probably missed something, but that's okay. This was another fun one. Thank you, Jason, for coming on as a special guest there.
My pleasure.
No problem. I look forward to your gnome post just to see. So you're going to give Mort a run for his money. I'm going to try. Well, Mike is not. Mike, you didn't sign up yet, so you're not in. Yeah. I would love to. I want to hope Alan DMs for me. That's what I was hoping. I was like, Alan, can you make sure that I'm DM? And he said, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, dang. But it would be it's going to be a fun experience, definitely. So guys, thanks everyone for all right, so we want to flip a coin. Do we want to raid Praetor's Rejects or Wicked Studios? What do you think?
Yep, you have to flip a coin on that.
Yeah, flip a coin on that one because that was like choosing between your kids.
A coin right here. I don't have any. All right, so I'm gonna roll a die. I have an odd even die here. Odd, it's Praetor's Rejects. Evens, it's Wicked Studios. It's Praetor's Rejects. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the exit screen, set that raid up. Thank you all for hopping on tonight. It was another great show.
Good times.
See you tomorrow night. And like I said, I'm on tomorrow night 7:30 for kind of cool adventuring and. Thank you. Hey, Mystery. Appreciate it. So I got to do this on my laptop, which I hate doing here. So I'm going to go to the exit screen while I'm setting up the raid. You guys have a good one. Talk to you soon. If I can hit this right button, right? There we go. Got it. Woohoo! We'll talk over everything.
Yeah.
Ooh. Bone hearts forever.
Bone hard all the way.
Yeah.
I'm working on that gnome list as we speak.
Oh, Jason, thanks.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
26 more villains. I had Kranzer on my list, Casey, but
we did.
Kranzer Riftcrag, right?
yeah,
That's all right, man. You know, it's like we can always go back to it. There's a ton of little ones that.
We didn't bring up Strahd. He's on the picks all night.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, we stayed out of the nut.
Yeah, we didn't go with the Mega
Most of
Weg
it.
ones tonight, you know?
Yeah, but those are so obvious, so it's more fun to go with the ones that aren't that obvious.
What's an egg of coot?
The egg of coot?
I've tried to stay as far away from eggs as possible. So yeah, it's on the map, but it's not on the campaign map. That's for sure.
Supposed to be a pound.
Okay.
And the egg of coot, I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's EGG. It's, I'm really not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Is that some those automata or there was those old runs or whatever it is from the lawful?
Raid starting? everyone. Have a great night. See you soon.
Later.
Yep. Bye.
Let's hope that worked.
It seems to work.
Yes.